Hello everybody, thanks for watching. This is my first video. Today we're going to be working on word problems using quadratic formula. So let's first recap the quadratic formula. So we know that it's x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all divided by 2a. So our first word problem says, a digital sensor records the height of a baseball after it is hit. The path of the ball can be modeled by the function y equals negative 4.9t squared plus 20.58t plus 0.491. How long is the ball in the air? So there's a few things to first realize. Again, quadratic formula, it's going to give us the value of our x values. In this case, it's going to be t. We're working with time. Also, if you think logically about the path of a ball, it's going to be hit at time 0 at an initial height, which in our case is 0.491, and it's going to land eventually. The ball is in the air until it hits the ground, which is this 0 here. So we need to find this value in order to solve our question. So let's look at the equation we have here. We have y equals negative 4.9t squared plus 20.58t plus 0.491. So it's really important that we need to understand where these a, b, and c values come from. So let's look at our equation in standard form. So it's y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. So a, b, and c, a and b are actually coefficients in front of the variables here. C is just our constant. So setting up this question, I always like to first state what our values are. So I know that a is negative 4.9. And remember to always keep the sign in front of the numbers. B is 20.58. And C is 0.491. So once we know these values, we can now sub them into our quadratic formula. So I have t equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac. And again, that's all over 2a. So now I can sub in my values. So negative 20.58. And I always like to keep my numbers in the brackets. It helps me to not lose a sign. So plus or minus square root of 20.58 squared minus 4 times a, which is negative 4.9, and times c, which is 0.491. And again, that's all over 2 times a, which is negative 4.9. Okay, so now we need to clean up our equation here. So this first part here is just negative 1 times 20.58, which is just negative 20.58. Plus or minus stays the same. Then we work under our square root. So if we take 20.58 and we square it, we get 423.54. Now, this part here is where most students make their mistakes, and it's from losing a sign when you multiply what's under the square root. So again, this is why I like to keep it in brackets. So I keep my negative the way it is, or my minus sign the way it is. And then I multiply 4 times negative 4.9 times 0.491. That should be a bracket there. So when I do that, I get negative 9.62. Okay. I can move on. So my denominator is 2 times negative 4.9, which is negative 9.8. Continue on. So negative 20.58 plus or minus. Now I can simplify what's underneath my square root. So 423.54 minus negative 9.62. Well, this double negative here essentially means to add. And when we do that, we get 433.16, again, over negative 9.8. So now we can separate our equation here into its two different parts. So we have negative 20.58 plus, and when I evaluate the square root of 433.16, I get 20.81 divided by 9.8, and I also get negative 20.58 minus 20.81 divided by negative 9.8. So we get two solutions here because of our plus and minus sign here. So we have one of our zeros, which comes from the sum of our numerator, and the other zero comes from the difference of our numerator. So that's why we have two different parts to our solution. Finally, we need to solve this. So negative 20.58 plus 20.81, all divided by negative 9.8, gives me a time of negative 0.02. And lastly, negative 20.58 minus 20.81, all divided by negative 9.8, gives us 4.22. And it's important, time is in seconds, so we got to keep our units. So if we look back at our question here, when we drew the path of the ball, our first zero here is at negative 0.02, and our second zero is at 4.22. So we know that, again, let's keep good math form here by having a therefore sentence. Therefore, the ball was in the air for 4.22 seconds. And now again, some of you might be asking you why we don't incorporate this negative 0.02 seconds. Well, that's because we can't, in theory, have a negative time. So the 0.02 just tells us where the zero is, but in the context of our question, it's irrelevant because we cannot have a negative time. So we start at time 0, and we know that from time 0 to time 4.22, the ball is in the air. So thank you for watching. If you guys like this video, if it helped you out, please like and subscribe.